Kuf Lamed Vav Amud Beis 136 B. We're starting at Chaymer B'Zroya, the stringency about the Zroya L'Chayim in the Keva that's more than Reishis Hagez. The Mishnah said that what's more strict about that? Because Zroya L'Chayim in the Keva applies to cattle and to sheep, whether there's a lot or a few. Reishis Hagez is only by sheep, and it's only if there's many. Now there's two gifts to the Kayan. There's the gifts that come from the animal after it's shechted, and then there's the gifts of wool. We said that the one that goes to the Kayan after it's shechted is more strict, because even if there's one animal that's shechted, you still have to give the gifts. And it applies to different types of animals. And the wool only applies to the sheep. The Gemara asks, why doesn't it go the other way? We have a stringency in the first shearings of wool. What is that stringency? The first shearings of wool, you have to take off an animal. When you take the shearings of wool off the animal, you have to give the first ones to the Kayan, or a piece of it to the Kayan, even if the animal was a treifa. For example, it's missing a leg, let's say. Even if the animal, you still have to give, because the wool isn't affected by the missing leg. However, the matanos, which is the gifts to the Kohen that come from the parts, the limbs of the animal, if it's a treifa, you don't have to give it. Why? Because it says you give it to the Kohen, you give it to him not to feed to his dog, because he won't be able to eat it if it's a treifa. So Ravina says Hamani Reb Shimoni. We're following Reb Shimon, the Tanya. In other words, who's the author of our Mishnah that doesn't say that? It's Reb Shimon. Reb Shimon holds, it's taught in a Brisa, Reb Shimon Paiter Satrefas Merishis Hagez. Reb Shimon says that a treifa animal, you don't have to take the wool off it, you don't have to take from the wool that you took off it to give to the Kohen if the animal is treif. It's exempt from giving part of it to the Kohen. Now, sometimes the treifa you have to open up the animal to find, but if you can see from the outside that it's treif, so you don't have to give to the Kohen. Yeah, whenever it says Reb Shimon, it's Reb Shimon B'Yachai. My time with the Reb Shimon, what's the reason for Reb Shimon? It says Yalef Nesina Nesina Mimatanas. He learns Nesina. It says V'nasan by Reishis Hagez, and it says V'nasan by the matanas. Ma matanas treifa loy. Just like by the gifts, you don't have to give if it's a treifa. After Reishis Hagez nami treifa loy. Also by the Reishis Hagez, knows the word that the usage of the same word teaches me that the halacha is the same in both. The Gemara says v'yalef nesina matanas. If we're using the word nasan or titnu loy, or anything that means to give, so leilef nesina mitruma. Then I'm back to learning it from truma, because by truma it also says you should give. And ma truma ba'aretzin b'chutz la'aretz lai. After Reishis Hagez, nami ba'aretzin b'chutz la'aretz lai. If I'm learning from truma, then that's going to. If I'm learning from nesina, then I should learn from truma. And if I learn from truma, then that's going to exempt outside the land of Israel. Alama Tanan. Why was it taught? Reishis Hagez naig ba'aretz b'chutz la'aretz. It's the beginning of the Mishnah. Starts off Reishis Hagez naig ba'aretz b'chutz la'aretz, that it applies both in the land and outside the land. So we have a problem. We tried to say the logic for Reb Shimon, but if we followed the explanation that we gave, that you don't say. If we follow the explanation that we gave, that the gifts. Thank you. That the Reishis Hagez doesn't go to the Kayan if it's a treifa. If you follow that logic, that it comes from the word nesina, then that's going to allow me to learn it from truma. And if I learn from truma, then I'm going to exclude if it's outside the land of Israel, and then it's not going to fit with our Mishnah. So what we're gaining by getting an author for our Mishnah, we're actually losing, because we're losing that, because it says clearly in the Mishnah that it applies even outside the land of Israel. So Gemara now says, Ella, rather, Haina time with the Reb Shimon. What's the reason for Reb Shimon? The Aleph Tzayin Tzayin Mi Meiser. That we learn from Meiser. And we learn, how do we learn from Meiser? Well, it says by us, by Reish Lagei's sheep, Tzayin. And it says by Meiser, Tzayin. And we're going to learn, Ma Meiser Treifalai, Af Reish Lagei's Treifalai. Just like by Meiser. Meiser is 1/10, which is that one animal out of every 10 has to be given as a korban. And how does it work? They make like a hole in a fence, and the animal walks through, and the 10th one is pronounced that it's the Meiser. So, v'hasaminalan, how do we know that by Meiser, if it's a treifa animal, that it doesn't become a korban? And how do we know? And then automatically, then we'll be able to learn from there that Reish Zagez, if it's a treifa, you don't have to give to the kohen. It says the ksiv, because it was written kol sheyavetach sashevet prat l'treifa she'nei veres. Anything that passes under the stick, under the staff that's used to hit the animal, to strike the animal, that it's to pronounce it, or when you're counting them. So if an animal is missing a leg and it's a treifa, so it can't walk on its own, so then it's not included in the laws of Meiser. The Gemara asks, same question that we asked before. Before we were talking about the word benasan. We said we were going to learn from matanes to exclude a treifa. So we asked, but if we're learning from benasan, then we should learn from truma. So now we say, okay, so we're going to learn from the word sign. It says the word sheep by the first shearings of wool. So we'll learn sheep from here. We'll learn sheep from the sheep by the Meiser. So we said if we're learning from the word sheep, we should learn from the word sheep by Bechar. Ma Bechar afilu treifa, Afreish Zagez afilu treifa. Very interesting. The Bechar, the firstborn animal, if it's a treifa, it's still considered a Bechar. You just don't bring it as a sacrifice. It belongs to the kohen, but it still has that status. It's a sacrifice with a mum. And it belongs to the kohen. So we could learn from Bechar exactly the opposite, that Reish Zagez should apply to a treifa, just like a Bechar. We were saying we're learning sign from Meiser, where Meiser doesn't apply if it's a treifa. But if you're learning from the word sign, maybe learn from Bechar where it does apply. So Gemara says, Mistabra mi Meiser havleila melach. It's more logical that we should learn from Meiser. Why? Because we have so many things that are similar between Meiser and the first shearings of wool. What are those things? Shekain. Are you ready? We have a list of 7 things. First one is Zacharim. There's 3 things. Let's do this so we can actually visualize this. Yeah, let me use. So let's do this. Yeah. I have. I'll do. You want? Can I use this bottle?
Yeah.
This is good.
Okay.
So I'm gonna do Meiser. See the 10th Meiser. Let's do Bechar. It looks young. It looks young. It's a little smaller. It's the firstborn animal. It's purple even. That's the parents buy purple clothes for the first kid. And this is the first shearings of wool. Okay, the shearings of wool that go to the kohen. So again, Meiser, Bechar, and the shearings of wool. What we're looking for is Meiser and Bechar. Meiser and shearings of wool, and this one is not similar. Okay, so it's these. So the first one is that Zacharim, that Meiser and the shearings of wool do not need to be a male animal. The Bechar does. The second one is Tameim. Meiser and the first shearings of wool doesn't apply if the animal isn't kosher, but Bechar applies even to a donkey, firstborn donkey. The third thing is B'merubin. Meiser and first shearings of wool only if you have more than one animal. Bechar is even when you have one animal. Mirechem. Meiser and first shearings of wool are not sanctified when it's born. The Bechar is sanctified when it's born. As we're looking at, these are the similarities. Adam, Meiser and the first shearings of wool don't apply to human. You don't count every 10th human and send them out. right? And the first shearings of wool is you don't have to do anything with the hair of a human. Pashat, Meiser, and the first shearings of wool apply to any animal that's not a bechar. However, bechar only applies to a bechar, the firstborn animal. And the seventh thing is lifnei adibur. Meiser and the first shearings of wool apply after the Torah was given. Bechar applied already in Egypt. Okay, so very good. We have 7 things. So therefore, we should learn the word sheep. Tzayin from. It says tzayin over here by the first shearings of wool. So it also says tzayin over here. We should learn meiser to, and therefore, just like meiser doesn't apply to a treifa, also because it can't walk underneath the stick. So also, reish lagiz doesn't apply to a treifa. What does this tell me? That the fact that the Mishnah says there's a stringency in the matanos, the foreleg, the jaw, and the stomach that go to the kayan over the reish lagiz, and I can't say the other way that there's stringency of reish lagiz over that. And why don't I say that? I could have said that this applies to a treifa and the matanos don't apply to a treifa. The reason is because this also doesn't apply to a treifa. Why? Because we learn it from Meiser, where it doesn't apply to a treifa. The Gemara asks, Adarabba, on the contrary, we should have learned it from Bechar, because Bechar is more similar than Meiser. Now, if you noticed, I put the Meiser over here, and the whole first time I'm jumping over this. The reason is because now the Gemara says that there's more similarity between the Bechar and the Reish Sagez. Okay, this was 7, this is going to be 8. First thing is Yasin. Yasin means there's a rule that if an animal is born while its mother is dying, that animal isn't counted for Meiser. It says Shivas Yam Tachas Imai. It should be under its mother for 7 days. And this one, the mother died right away, so it's not counted. So Meiser is different than Bechar and Reish Sagez, because both of those will be applicable even if the mother dies immediately at the birth. So that's a similarity. The second thing is Shalakhu. If you buy a firstborn, or if you buy a sheep, and you cut the hair off it, you have the laws of Bechar and Reish Sagez. However, by Meiser, if you buy an animal, you don't have to use it for Meiser. It has to be born by you to have the laws of Meiser. The third thing is B'shutfus. Bechar and Reish Sagez applies even if 2 people own it. I know this was a machlekes yesterday, but if you don't go like Rabbi Law, you go like the Tanakama, that will apply as well. Nasnu, if it was given as a gift, the same thing applies. That Bechar, and if someone gives you a firstborn animal, it's still considered a firstborn. Or if someone gives you the mother, it's still, and it has a child, it's still a firstborn. The same with Reish Sagez. If someone gives it to you, the animal would need. That's how does this work by Reish Sagez? No, it still becomes your obligation if you get all of the wool. If you get all of the wool, Tzayin needs to be your sheep. Your sheep. Well, we'll see exactly more details about that. Okay, Bifnei means even not by the Beis Hamikdash. Meiser is a sacrifice that's only by the Beis Hamikdash. However, the Bechar still applies, and the Reish Sagez still applies. Kayen, this is given to the Kayen, the Bechar and the Reish Sagez. Meiser is a regular sacrifice. Now the Kayen could get a part from it, but it really belongs to the owner. It's not the gift. It's not considered a gift to the Kohen. The Kedusha, the Bechar, Rashi has 2 pshatim here. The Bechar you don't have to sanctify because it's born sanctified, and the Reish Sagez you don't sanctify at all because it's not holy. However, Meiser you have to sanctify. You have to pronounce it. And the 8th thing is the Mechira, that a Bechar you can sell to the Kohen, and I'm sorry. Bechar, the kohen can sell, and also the wool you can also is the kohen can sell, but meiser you're not allowed to sell.
I hate to ask a question, but before when it says the first wool and the firstborn are both given to the kohen, but the animal, but from meiser is eaten by the owner. It's not given to the kohen.
Right.
I thought the whole idea of meiser is to give it to the kohen.
No, meiser of grain is given to the Levi.
Okay.
Meiser of an animal, habachar v'meiser v'pesach kachim kalim. It's a sacrifice that's brought in the temple. And who eats it? The owner eats it. In Jerusalem. So it's not considered a gift to the Kohen. It's a sacrifice, but it's not a gift to the Kohen. So here we have 8 things. When we said B'Kedusha, which the 7th one, right on top of the page, so we said that you have to sanctify it. Rashi brings another pshat which he rejects. He says that you can use it to marry a woman. You can give it to her instead of the ring. You can give her bechar, or you can give...
Is that well received? Is that a good message?
or you can give the wool. Rashi rejects this. He says because you can give meiser as well, so that it wouldn't be... And the Gemara concludes this statement with Vahanach Nefishin. And here we have more. So therefore we should learn meiser here. Therefore we should learn bechar from... we should learn Reish Zagez from bechar because you have 8 over 7. So the Gemara says Pasha mit Pasha Ladiflay. It's better to learn, even though there's more things that are similar between bechar and Reish Zagez, but nevertheless, the bechar is so unique because it's a firstborn animal. We'd rather learn from meiser, which both of those are just regular animals. And Reish Zagez is a regular animal, and meiser is a regular animal. Okay. Kuf Lamed Zayin, we're on the top, second line. Reish Zagez, Einu Nagel B'Chelim. The firstborn only applies to sheep. Minahani Mili. From where do we know that it only applies to sheep? Amar Rav Chizda Asya Giza Giza. It says in the pasuk, "Gracious Geis Tzeincha Titin Lai." It says the first of the shearings. Tzeincha means your tzeincha. It could mean sheep, and it could include goats as well under that category. It's how do they translate tzain?
Flock.
Flock. Good. So the first of your shearings of your flock you should give to him, to the kohen. And it also says in Iyeh, "V'megeis kivsi yischamim," and from the shearing of my sheep, let him be warmed, or he will be warmed. This is Iyeh describing how he did everything appropriately, and he never did anything wrong. And in there he uses this term, that'll be warmed from the shearings of the sheep. So we see sheep is used in association with shearings, and so therefore when it says in the Torah the shearings, it's also referring to sheep. Just like by Iyov it's referring to sheep, so to the shearings of wool that are given to the kohen is the sheep. The Gemara asks, maybe I can learn from Bechar, and over there it's going to be different. Because over there it also says the word shearings, and over there it includes oxen. The Tanya was taught in a brisa, it says that you're not allowed to work the firstborn ox. Why? Because it's given to the Kohen and it's a sacrifice. And you're not allowed to shear the wool of your flock. Now I have again the word flock. However, when the Torah describes what you're not allowed to do, it says that you're not allowed to work the ox, and you're not allowed to shear the flock of the firstborn of these. So, how do I know that I'm not allowed to work the flock or shear the oxen? It says again, you shall not work and you shall not shear, which means that it applies to both. So if it applies to both, that means the shearing of the wool that I have to give to the Kohen, if I learn from Bechar, would also apply to oxen if I shear the wool off a cow. The same I would have to give to the Kohen. So if I learn from the pasuk in Iyov, then I know it's only sheep. How am I learning it? Because it says shearing, gaze, which is shearing. So, but if I'm learning from the word gaze, shearing, then I could learn also from Bechar, and over there it applies to oxen as well. So Amakra, the pasuk says, Titin lev leila sakei. It says you give to the Kohen, which means you give it to him to wear. Now the shearings of wool that come from a cow, the wool is much harder and it's difficult to wear, and it's more used for making bags. Sack is a sack in English, or probably like canvas type things. That comes from the ground, but this is okay. Elamayata. If that's the case, so Neitza Shalizim L'Chayiv. The goat here, that's not sheared the same way as you would a sheep. It's plucked. That's why it's called Neitza, which means like a feather. But the goat here, you can wear. So if it has to do with wearing, so then it should apply to goats as well. The Gemara says, "Be'inun giza v'leka." You have to shear it. Over here, you pluck it. So it's not shorn. So therefore it doesn't apply. Man shamat leihai svara. Who says that you have to read everything literal like that? It says giza to shear. It says Rabbi Yosi. It's Rabbi Yosi. Problem is, Rabbi Yosi admits on anything that's the normal way, that it would apply as well. And since this is the normal way of getting off this here, I think cashmere comes from goats, right? Yeah. So if this is the normal way, so then it should apply to that also. You should have to give the first of the goat wool to the Kohen. Elakadam Rabbi Shua ben Levi. We're going to switch. It's rather what Rabbi Shua ben Levi says. It says Lamed l'sharis, davar harei l'shiris. Hachanami davar harei l'shiris. When it says in the pasuk is Ki boi bachar Hashem mikol shvatecha lamed l'sharis. It says that you should give it to the Kohen because Hashem chose him to stand and to serve. So to stand and to serve means that it needs to be something that's worthy of serving with. Now, what do you serve with? Wool, because that's the garments of the Kohen are made from wool, so it needs to be wool. Hachanami davar l'shiris. Ela giza lamayasa. Okay, now that we dropped the shearing, gaze, it says gaze, we learned it from to stand and to serve. So what do we do with that gzer shava that we had, gaze? We learn it. We have to learn something. It has to be there for something. So it says, "Look at Tana de Rabbi Shmuel." We're going to use it for Rabbi Shmuel says. Tana de Rabbi Shmuel, "Kvasim shetzamron kasher p'tur meish zagez." If you have sheep that their wool is very hard, it's rough, so therefore you're exempt from meish zagez. Shenemar megez kavtzi eschamim, from the shearing of my sheep, he will be warm. Tanichada goizes eseidzim, v'sheitif eserachelim pater. One brisa says that if someone shears the wool off a goat, which is not normally what's done, and he washes a sheep, and while he's washing the sheep, hair falls out. He used the wrong shampoo, and the hair falls out, and now you have all this wool collected. So you have to give from that because you didn't shear it. So it says, one brisa says that you're pater, because you didn't cut it. But Tanya Yidach, the other brisa says, the goes that season is pater. Yes, if you shear the goat, you're pater. However, v'sheitif eserachelim is chayiv. But if you wash the sheep and all this wool comes off while you're washing it, so then you're chayiv. So we have a machlekes here. Gemara says, like kasha. It's not a problem. I should have said, we have a contradiction. And the Gemara says, like kasha, it's not a problem because it's a machlekes. It's not a contradiction. Machlekes is an answer to a contradiction, right? It's not a contradiction. It's a machlekes. It's two different opinions. Harabanan v'Rabbi Yosi. Rabbi Yosi was the one that says that you're pater. Why? Because Rabbi Yosi says that it needs to be literal. It needs to be shorn to be cut, because it says guys. The Tanya, as we're starting a brisa, leket ketzircha. We use an example here from a totally different concept. It says the gathering of your harvest, you have to leave to the poor person. In other words, what falls while you're harvesting, But if you're not harvesting properly with cutting, kaitzer means to cut, to reap, but you're just grabbing it, so then you don't need to leave that to the poor if it falls. Rabbi Yossi says these things that are left for the poor is only things that come from cutting. The Gemara asks, Rabbi Yossi ani Tanakama. That's exactly what the first opinion said. It's only from the reaping, from the cutting, not from what you grab. The Gemara says, yeah, actually, Kula Rabbi Yossi. It's all one opinion. It's all Rabbi Yossi. And this is what it's saying. Rabbi Yossi Aimer, because Rabbi Yossi says, Ein leket ela haba machmas katzer. The first statement was that it only applies to things that are cut, and they fall, you have to leave it for the poor. Because Rabbi Yossi holds that it needs to be cut. Now, why does it need to be cut? Because the pasuk says, leket kitzircha. And Rabbi Yossi reads everything literal, so it needs to be cut. Okay. Amalei Ravacha Breider Rabba Ravashi. Ravacha, the son of Rabba, says to Ravashi, Moider Rabbi Yossi b'midu d'orchi. Rabbi Yossi acknowledges something that's normal. The Tanya, it was taught in the Brisa. Rabbi Yossi Emer Katzer ein li ela Katzer. When it says to harvest, I would only know if it's harvested, if it's reaped. Oiker minayin, how do you know if you pull it out from the roots? The same law applies. Talmud Leimer Liktzer. It says in the pasuk, Liktzer, to harvest. And that could be normal to pull it out. Tailish minayin. How do you know if you pull it with your hand, like for example the way you would harvest beans? Talmud Leimer bekutzrecha. It includes that as well, because all of those are the normal way of harvesting. So even though Rabbi Yossi reads it literal that it needs to be cut, but if that's the normal way of harvesting, then Rabbi Yossi acknowledges that that's the same law applies, and if some fall, you have to leave it for the poor. Amalei Ravina Ravashi Yafanan Namitanina. Ravina says to Ravashi, this was also taught in a Mishnah. It says, Malavnais Bitzalim Shabein Hayerek Rabbi Yossi Merpeh Mikolechad Vechad Vachamer Me'achas Alakol. Okay. Vegetables are not obligated in payah. You don't have to leave the corner of the field for payah. The corner of the vegetable garden for payah. Why? Because payah only applies to things that are gathered and are stored. But vegetables aren't stored. They have to be eaten right away. Even you put it in the refrigerator, it gives you an extra few days, but that's it.
You need to preserve them or something?
They're not like grain. Grain is stored. So grain has the rules of payah. So what about certain vegetables that are stored? For example, onions, they could be stored longer. Or what's batzal is? Batzal is onions. So those are different. So here's the question: if I have vegetable gardens, and in between I planted onions, so do I consider the vegetables to be dividing the field of the onions? Because regarding payah, all of the vegetables aren't counted. So Rabbi Yossi views it like this. Rabbi Yossi says, payah mikol echad v'echad, each one is a separate garden. I have to leave payah from each one. And the Chachamim say that you leave from one on all of them. Now, the fact that Rabbi Yossi says that they're chayiv and payah, even though you don't cut them, you don't harvest them with a sickle, right? You don't. But nevertheless, because the normal way of harvesting is to dig them up or whatever, so that's considered the normal way. So it's a proof that Rabbi Yossi acknowledges that even though you have to read the pasuk literally, but if that's the normal way, then that's counting. Okay, v'kamahu meruba. We said that by Reishis Hagez, you need to have a large amount. How much is a large amount? Beis Shammai said 2 sheep, and Beis Hillel says 5 sheep. Once you have 5 sheep, then you have to leave the first shearings of wool, or 2 sheep. The Gemara says, Bishleim Beis Shammai. It works out well according to Beis Shammai. Why 2 sheep? Taitinami ekritzain. Because 2 is called sheep. It was called flock. You have 2, it's already a plural. State sign. That's the pasuk that that Beis Shammai brought. El Beis Hillel my time. So what's the reason for Beis Hillel? Amar Rav Kana Amakra Asuyos. Shasuyos Beis Mitzvahs. Reish Zagez and Matanis. It's a little interesting. The pasuk that Beis Hillel brought was Chamish Tzayin Asuyos. 5 sheep prepared. We're talking about Abigail prepared for David 5 sheep when he was coming. He needed food, and Abigail prepared the sheep. So, and she fed David. So, how do we know that it's 5? So it says asuyas. So, which means that you can do asuyas is a plural, prepared. That means that there's 2 mitzvahs that you can do with this. One is Reish Zagez, and the other one is Matanis. Now, what that means is that if you don't have 5 sheep, then you can't do these 2 mitzvahs. The Gemara asks, Ema b'chayra Matanis. How do you know that it's Reish Zagez needs the 5 sheep? If you want 2 mitzvahs that you do with sheep, it could be the firstborn, and the Matanis, the gifts that you give to the Kohen from after it's shechted. So it says, you need 5 sheep to have a firstborn animal? Yeah, only 1 is enough. So the Gemara says, oh, you're going to ask me those types of questions? Well, according to you, what about the gifts to the Kohen after the animal is shechted? The foreleg, the jaw, and the stomach. You need 5 animals to give that? You also give that with 1. So why are you telling me asuyas means 2 mitzvahs that require 5? The Reish Zagez and also the gifts. Gifts don't require 5 sheep. Elam Ravashi asuyas. Rashi learns it different. Asuyas means that it's like compelling. Shema'asis espaleim va'imers like kumasei mitzvah. These, when you have 5, it compels the owner to get up and do the mitzvah. What mitzvah? Reish Zagez. 5 sheep require that. And that we learned from the pasuk in Shmuel, which was Abigail and David. Tanya debei Rabbi Yishmael bar Rabbi Yosi was taught in the yeshiva. It was taught in the brisa. Tanya debei Rabbi Yishmael bar Rabbi Yosi Aimer mishum aviv. There's a problem here. You have to take out the word debei. Tanya was taught in the brisa. Rabbi Yishmael bar Rabbi Yosi Aimer mishum aviv. Rabbi Yishmael, the son of Rabbi Yosi, says in the name of his father. Who's his father? Rabbi Yosi. He says, Arba, you only need 4 sheep to be chayiv. Shenemar v'arba tzayin tachas haseh. It says if someone steals and sells it or slaughters it, if it steals a sheep and you catch the thief, so he has to give 4 sheep in place of the lamb.